Yep. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the town board meeting for April 26, 2023 at 6:32 p.m. As always, we've got our virtual meeting set up here. You can join us via Zoom. You can watch us on Facebook, YouTube, or on the website. And the instructions for doing just that are at the top of each agenda. There's a link there that'll get you all of Zoom information. So first thing is I will ask Counselor Italiano to lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and at the top of each meeting, we have open podium, which is an opportunity for folks to come in and ask questions, make comments to the board. We ask that folks keep to about 3 minutes apiece. And I see Joe Walker. Is this in reference to the public hearing we have later on? No?
No, it's free, all of that.
What's that?
It's, yeah, I'll make it short.
Okay, come on up, about 3 minutes.
I'm hearing from my neighbors, you know, that I'm supposed to be coming to this town hall meeting, and I've explained to them that I've already been to the zoning and planning meetings, and in regards to Mr. Freschetti, they're stating, you know, that the land at the end of the road that Vertura wasn't able to purchase and develop. That the town, I guess, had made the decision that I, you know, because I was the one who was helping him and with that end of the property that he owned anyway, and that they were just gonna give me a land grant in regards to that. So I'm here, you know, in regards to that, just to let, you know, the town attorney know that I'm aware of that. But in regards to my property that I've, you know, legally purchased, I paid my taxes on. You know, I had my meeting with the town supervisor, and as far as I'm concerned, he's number one when it comes to the town. And you know, the maintenance and codes and everything. You know, if you need to get something done, he's the one who has to give the final approval. So I've been told, you know, as a new homeowner here in the town of Manlius, that it's going on 3 years that I've been a taxpayer in the town. And I was told that it's New York State Department of Environmental and Conservation land. And that if I wanted to do anything on the land, that I had to speak to the Department of Environmental and Conservation. They're a state agency across the board. I have friends that are in the New York State Supreme Court for the judicial branch here in New York State. So I'm not a rookie, you know, I'm an attorney myself, so I know the law. So when you had told me that you had been there, what was that, 3 summers ago? And you had seen the property, well, I guess you had said someone else had accompanied you there, and I didn't know anything about it. You know, I'm a law abiding citizen. So come to find out, it's one of my fraternity brothers came to visit me. There's a, you know,
Mr. Walker,
town
I have
of Manlius.
I have to
believe
interrupt
I'm
you.
only
I'm,
about
no, I
2
have to interrupt you for a second. Open podium is not designed to be
No,
about specific issues.
I'm speaking,
I
I'm
had
about to
asked-
speak
And I
about
wanna
the
make
law
sure you-
enforcement back before you guys get to whatever final you think that you're talking about here.
I do think that this could
So,
open
so
public
the,
hearing
so.
and
Yeah,
then-
so I'll just ask you to save your comments for the public
Police
hearing.
Department.
Mr. Walker.
I'm gonna ask you to save your
told me
comments
that
for the
he
public
had
hearing.
already been back there with.
So I'm
you
gonna ask you
and-
to reserve
and
these comments for the public hearing.
confirmed that my lean-to structure was on the property in the summer of
And now the comments have,
That is what I would like
the
to
public hearing
state.
is coming right up.
That's it.
Sir, we're
That's
gonna
it.
follow our
We-
That's,
procedure.
from you.
that's my main structure.
No,
Thank
but
you.
we're-
Mr. Walker. Okay,
We're good.
okay.
Okay. Next up, I have Elizabeth Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm Lisa Chapman. 62, I'm 62 years old. I've lived at 7135 East Genesee Street for 62 years. Okay, love it. FM 1978, loved it. Went to college, the whole bit. And when my father died and when my husband died, I came home. Moved right back into the house. And I'm hearing rumors, and I think it's funny because I live in the same neighborhood as this gentleman, and I get tired of rumors. I think we all do, and that's why I decided to come to the source. And they're talking about putting some sidewalks in front of my house. Okay, which sounds great if that's what's going to be done. We really need drainage. We've had flooding there. Mr. Irwin, who's I believe a 65-year person, had terrible, terrible problems. I get flooded in the backyard, but it doesn't hurt anything I own, okay? Then my neighbors next door, Miss Sarah, I think they had some flooding too. And so, yeah, I'm glad you're looking at us and considering us, please do, because I sometimes feel like we're sort of the butt of Fayetteville. And we do need drainage. We don't need sidewalks. Why? Just so you know, and I'm gonna give you these facts and I'm not gonna say anymore, okay? 7 mailboxes. Since I've been there myself, I've lost 7 mailboxes to trucks, cars, and drunk drivers. Do you want your kid on a sidewalk there? Okay. I've had a deer that nobody would take care of. The state told me to sit on it, literally. And it was filled with ticks, so I didn't sit on it. And finally, our town came to help me. Because I had kids walking by, I let them go on my yard. I don't want them by that street. Okay, and it was filled with ticks and, you know, and they helped me out and I thank them for that. The other night I had a cat that got eaten by a turkey vulture, but before he got eaten by the turkey vulture, he got hit in the front of my house. Okay, problem solved, no more cat, but we're trying to find the owner just now. So I just want you to remember one thing. When I grew up there, it was a 2-lane highway. And I used to go across the street. My mother would let me go across the street with her watching. And Mr. Clark was in the Clark mansion and he had a big white horse. And he would ride his horse down the street every day to go get the newspaper. Down at what was Saul's Drugs. Okay, how often is that? I remember that. And I just want you to keep in mind the history of this wonderful place because I get chills just talking about it. Fayetteville is my home, okay? And I just want to be aware that if my mother's trees are going to get moved or taken down, give me time to get used to it. Don't let me hear it from people who are going, oh, I heard they're gonna have a big sidewalk. I hope not.
Well, only, do you want to elaborate a little on the sidewalk? The
Well,
program?
So we have the sidewalk program, which is something for neighbors that are interested in creating a sidewalk district,
Okay,
have a mechanism to do that. I haven't heard anything about Genesee Street, but I think, I know I've been in conversations with DOT, with the village, with some other stakeholders about exactly the drainage issue. And we know, I mean, one of the biggest problems we have with getting drainage to the 100 block over in Homewood is, we would have to, rip up a state road. So the plan is, as we move forward, as, the comprehensive plan is adopted, is to go to DOT, have them take a look at Genesee Street, and ideally, as they are very likely to move towards some kind of complete street, that's their new program for making things pedestrian and cyclist friendly. We would also, the main catalyst there is to try and get access to put in drainage infrastructure for that 100 block. Because right now we just, I could let Highway Superintendent Fisher speak to a little bit more, but we have a major roadblock in getting that drainage infrastructure there. And that's where we're trying to find some solution that would allow us to address that while also allowing the DOT to take another look at Genesee Street and make some recommendations and see where, it's gonna be going.
I don't mind losing land because the people's houses don't get wrecked.
Yeah.
Okay, and we need to look at that and maybe a nice cover over it and kids can go, but I'm telling you, we've seen people, I grew up there, we've seen people hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to see any of my friends' children and grandchildren hurt. And if you get into a project, I'd like to be a part of it.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
I'm one of the last ones living on Genesee.
Yeah.
In an original house. And I have great neighbors.
If we,
Okay.
if we were to develop a sidewalk project in front of your house, you would vote on it as a part of forming a special district. So there wouldn't be a day that you would just suddenly see a sidewalk appear in front of your house.
That's good.
There, in the villages, it's very different, but in the town, to develop a sidewalk project, we have to form a special district. And that has to be voted on by the majority of the taxable.
So with the neighborhood sidewalk program, you would be noticed, if someone did do your thing, that we would potentially vote to create that district.
Okay, I'm just.
And a
saying,
majority of the
so we
people
know.
who want,
need
it would have to be the majority of the, what is it, the assessed value?
No,
Landowners.
a different way.
Okay, so in any case, we would have to move forward, you would certainly be aware of it.
Okay, because I'd like to, if I want to see the plans the night before, I could be right behind it. But
Absolutely.
I'm very concerned.
If you leave an email address with us, I can also email you a link to some frames of plan so you can see where we are and what we've been talking about.
Sure,
But
and I
we'd love
no
to have you
problem.
involved.
Just so you all know, I'm not here to be angry or nasty.
No,
I just want everybody to be aware because I've had dogs, kids coming up when they've been hit.
it's an important point. It is a highway at the end of the
Well, and
day.
And I wouldn't walk across it anymore.
We would have, if we were to develop a project, there would be all sorts of things included with traffic calming measures, and we would develop the sidewalk safely. It wouldn't just be like right alongside the highway. There would be a lot that would go into developing a project on East.
Well, remember too, I've already had my land squished.
Yeah,
And the other thing too with
Yeah,
this, just so you all understand, I don't mind that. But traditionally, the Fayetteville area has been sort of screwed. We were told by having 4 lanes, there'd be less traffic. I don't know if you know, if you see there's less traffic, I know how many would,
yeah.
go across that. And we need it because we have people living up here now, right? I'm not against that. But, so they gave us the light. Do you know how many people run the light?
Yeah.
Okay, and so I don't mind the light. I have a neighbor who has cancer and that tick, 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 she's threatening to dismantle it. And I told her to call you and see if there's a way we can, because we need it if there's someone deaf in the area. But just so you know,
One more project that you should probably keep your eye on, and that's the state and the federal government's response to the ancillary projects to I-81 coming down. So that interchange right at Linden Corners is being studied.
Mhm.
And so we also want to make sure that's not our doing, but we advocate and we'll try to keep people informed about it as well, but that'll be really relevant.
yeah, and I'm not worried. I have faith in my town government, but we were promised, just so you all know this. We were promised we'd have an urgent care when they built the center, okay? There's no urgent care, it's gone now. Why aren't they upholding our agreement? Okay, that's what my parents fought for, is to be able to have an urgent care there. They were getting older and they wanted something nearby. We don't have an urgent care. So that's why I wanted to address all of you, and I'm sorry if I'm wasting your
No
time,
worries.
but,
No,
I
this
want
is
you
why
to-
we made open podium, was for exactly this type of thing.
well, thank you so much and thank you for hearing me out.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day. I'll give you my,
Please do.
email.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else here for open podium? Do we have anybody joining us via Zoom who's here for open podium? If you are, please use the raise hand function. Okay. Last call for open podium. Great, we'll move on. So first up on the agenda, we have our public hearing on the unsafe building / structure at 606 and 607 Washington Boulevard. The attorney like to just kind of bring us up to speed, or do you want me to handle that?
Well, we have a public hearing scheduled for tonight on determining whether the structure is unsafe and whether the town can actually go onto the property and remove it. That is the purpose of the public hearing tonight. Mr. Walker, you're entitled to be heard on this. I believe the code enforcement officer also has.
As a brief presentation before we.
That he would like to proceed with as well. So if the board wants to open the public hearing, they certainly can at this time.
We'll have the code enforcement officer give his presentation and statement, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Thank you Supervisor Gear, members of the board. As outlined in the resolution authorizing removal and or demolition of dangerous or unsafe structures, the structures erected on 607 Washington Boulevard or 606 Cleveland Boulevard are dangerous and unsafe. The structures are such because they do not comply with various New York State codes, including lack of water and sanitary service required by the approval of the building official. And the structures do not provide minimum safeguards to protect or warn occupants in the event of the fire. The structures on the property must be seen as dwelling units and not accessory structures. As outlined in Town Law, Chapter 155, accessory structures are buildings clearly incidental or subordinate to and used in connection with a dwelling and located on the same lot there within. dwellings per town law, chapter 155 and R3 zoning classification must also, one, require a building permit, and two, must meet minimum requirements such as area based on sewer and septic service. And dwellings must also be permanent structures, which do not include casual or temporary shelters such as tents, trailers on wheels, or other shelters designed to be readily removable from the premises. I request the town board approve the resolution to obtain 3 proposals to remove the unsafe and dangerous structures, which would commence on June 2nd, no later than or after June 2nd, 2024, which is 60 days after the notice of service.
Thank you.
What year?
2024 or 2023, sorry about that.
Okay, any comments or questions from the board before we open the public hearing?
It's still open the last time.
Still open. Okay, so Mr. Walker, if you'd like to come give your comment, I'm gonna put 5 minutes on the timer for you, so we can get through everyone else that's here to speak. All right.
Go ahead, fine, second. So as we have already established, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation already gave me permission to build a camp on the property. They said a main structure building that I would be able to live in on the property other than a tent, which is normal, campsite, you put up a tent. Duh, okay? So we've already determined that the law enforcement in this town is already confirmed with the town supervisor, who is in charge of giving final approval on buildings on the property here, that there was a lean-to structure on the property. He came by this past week. This is my neighbor. He can attest to this. He's quite well aware of the police presence in our neighborhood. And as far as we're concerned, this is all crap. But he said, that we saw the branches, your lean-to structure was up, and that there was a cop underneath of it. And he knew, whatever. Well, I had told you that, that the state already gave me approval to build a camp. And my original thing that I did, first I paid my taxes, and second, I went to go get permit applications, and then third, I did all my background before this. So I met with the town supervisor in regards to building a shed, and your website clearly states that an accessory structure, a shed, no larger than 144 square feet, may be built within the town of Manlius without a permit.
May I
You're
comment on
also
that?
allowed to build a fence around your property without a permit.
Can I comment on that point about the shed?
Yes, sir.
So in my terms, not code enforcement terms, in order for there to be a shed on the property, it would either need to be an accessory structure to a dwelling, which requires a building permit, or it would have to be a agriculturally zoned area with the shed's structure's main purpose being for agricultural production. So given those constraints, your structure does not qualify as a shed.
The lean-to structure is a main dwelling unit. That is the dwelling unit.
And in order to have a dwelling, you need a building permit.
I have an outhouse. My outhouse is built.
Do you have a building permit from the town of
Department
Manlius?
Environmental Conservation told me that once I have a main dwelling unit and an outhouse, that there's nothing that the town can tell me that I cannot do on my property.
You've received incorrect advice, and I know
And
our code enforcement
information.
officers reached out to you multiple times to let you know.
Information on the code for the residential district R3 clearly states that you are not allowed to build a single family dwelling unit on the property.
Do you have a building permit from the town of Manlius?
I don't need a building permit to have to build
You
my
do.
lean-to and reside on the property. Well, you're gonna have to show me and the law enforcement here in the town of Manlius that, because I've already called the police on Mr. Poitras and clearly stated that he has filed false accusations in regards to needing a building permit. The fact that I was building on 606 Cleveland Boulevard when there wasn't even anything on 606 Cleveland Boulevard. And then he went ahead and filed false court documentation. I had to go call Judge Rothschild and tell him, I said, that you might have actually accidentally filed false paperwork in your own court of law due to Mr. Poitras's incompetence. With New York State Supreme Court told me that if there was nothing on 606 Cleveland Boulevard, that they're two different tax map numbers, that the court paperwork needed to be refiled. So not only did I make my court appearance in regards to the 606 Cleveland Boulevard issue that he originally had filed, 3 strikes, you're out. You're incompetent, Mr. Poitras.
All right, we're gonna
and
refrain
anything
from
after
personal
that
insults.
should be thrown
We're gonna
out.
refrain from
of
personal
your
insults because that's against our code of conduct.
That is quite wrong.
Anything else?
I haven't broken any code violations, I haven't broken any laws, and that you're not telling me that I am not allowed to make my stay here and make a living in the town of, in the village of Fayetteville. I had a job, I became injured, I'm not at work anymore. There ain't anyone who wants to develop that side of the land, so in regards to safety, Mr. Poitras had 30 days to come to the property. It's sub-freezing temperatures. I've been there for 2 years. Sub-freezing temperatures, we're talking, it's 20 degrees outside with freezing rain and snow for, you know, however long, and you had 30 days to come by to do your safety inspection, and you didn't show up.
Thank you for your comments.
So you had false accusations, filed illegal court paperwork, and then didn't show up for a safety inspection.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Who else is here to comment on this public hearing?
My name is Jerry Smith. I live at the end of Cleveland Boulevard. And I live right in bird's eye view of where this is going on. I've been there for 6 years. First of all, the number of 2 years is, keeps coming up about, Mr. Walker being there. He purchased the property November 15th of 21. This all started, just about last fall, all of this construction, if you will. And at the time, I raised the question, and I met Mr. Poitras for the first time because I talked to him, was concerned that there was a code violation here. Now, I own the property at the end of Cleveland Boulevard, and I own the 2 lots that are vacant right next to it. And I've always been under the assumption that if I was in farm country, that I could park a tractor there, a trailer there, a shed there, a bunch of dead cows there. I could do anything I want. But if I was in a residential area, in a suburban area, and I wanted to do that, somebody was going to come by and talk to me. If I wanted to build a garage or any structure on my property, be it 100 feet or 10,000 feet, I was under the assumption that this being in a residential area, I would have to get a permit to do such. And I've heard nothing to hear differently. But my friend here who I've met, he just keeps coming down, hammering away. He was hammering away about 2 hours ago. He's bought the property. He's bought the property from the town, from the county of Onondaga for $150 each one. And now he thinks he can just come in there and not do any permits or anything else. I bought that land there in hopes of someday developing a trail between town center and Cedar Bay Park. That would require cooperation of the Onondaga Country Club. That may or may never happen. But I certainly wasn't there because I was told it was all wetland and that wasn't going to be developed. The original plot maps from the 50s show Cedar Bay Road or Cleveland rather going all the way to Cedar Bay, Washington going all the way to Cedar Bay, McLennan going all the way to Cedar Bay. That's before President Kennedy and the Environmental Protection Agency. That's all changed. If it hadn't changed, I wouldn't be there. I wanted to live in a place that we did that without a gated community. I moved to South Carolina or Georgia where the weather's a lot better, where they don't have zoning. We have zoning here, we have law here, we have rules here. And I'm sorry, my friend, you're not following.
He said there's.
Excuse me, we gotta give everybody an opportunity to talk, and just as a reminder to everybody, during a public hearing, any commenter is addressing the board, and that's the intent of this, is to address the board, to give us your comments, ask us your questions, so if that could just be respected, I'd appreciate it. Who would like to come up next and speak?
I would like to make a comment. Lisa again. Again, 62 years. Again, that's the neighborhood I grew up on. And again, those are the trails that I rode. And there's always been a trail from our neighborhood to town center. Why? Because our parents didn't let us go on the highway that was the kill zone. So I went down the trail to Sibley's and worked all the way through high school. I enjoyed it immensely, by the way. But there's a problem when in our neighborhood, and John, you've lived there, you know it. We're a nice neighborhood, okay? And we like each other. We all get along. You don't see gangs roving to the Homewood Sunnyside tract. All right, when I had 3 parents come to me and they go, you have a shepherd, right? Yeah. She's big, right? Yeah. Will you go down Washington and find out, we're hearing that there's a guy there alone. We're not letting our kids use the trails anymore. Okay, it's his legal property, that's fine. Why weren't we told? Don't you think the parents had a right to know that those trails are somebody else's? And for the safety of everybody, including him, people shouldn't be going down there, but they were. So I went down, knocked on the door, there was no answer, had no idea what was going on. Parents were flipping out because they found the lean-to. So I think this should be resolved, and we've got to look at all sides, because I understand the gentleman that we're supposed to, woulda, coulda, shoulda, we were gonna have first a road to Cedar Bay, then a road. It's terrible land over there. There's a drop off. Great for bikes, great place to go up. They've already put houses on our old pet cemetery, which makes you think of Stephen King. But other than that, it's a beautiful area, and I'd like to keep it that way for other kids, because I enjoyed it. Thank you.
So just as a kind of follow up on that comment, we did meet with a small group, somewhere between 15, 20 people about the trails back there. Maybe last year, or the year before. We've had some conversations about those trails, and I mean, we did inform folks that it is all private property back there. And I know there's a history of those trails being used. We did explore some options as how the town could either have some agency take that over, or the town could take it over. We're still in conversation about that, especially now understanding, you know, some of the issues with that being privately owned by a number of different owners. But just to be clear, the trails back there, it is private property. So that's just something that I wanted to make sure
These are unofficial trails.
Correct, yes. They've been on official trails for 200 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right.
We just
And
kinda-
they're 60 years.
And if we lived in England, they'd be open to the public.
We're gonna move on to the
But
next
we
comment.
don't live in England.
But thank you, sir. Who else is here? If there's anyone online via Zoom who would like to make a comment? If so, please use the raise hand function. Is there anyone else here in the room who'd like to make a comment on this public hearing? Okay, we'll wait for anybody online. Give it another 15 seconds. Okay, with that, I would look for a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Does Sarah get to vote?
Yeah. So I will actually make sure we have that in the record. Counselor Deputy Supervisor Bollinger is joining us remotely. She's out of town for work. Okay, any discussion by the board? Any questions for our attorney, for code enforcement officer?
I just want to make sure I understand where we are. There is no site plan, there's no permit that has ever been approved by the town. There's, for the structure Mr. Walker has, I heard you detail exactly why there might be a misunderstanding about the structure itself. And we've made these multiple, I've been following the attempts we've made to communicate and make sure there's proper notice. And we've crossed all our, yeah, okay, just confirming all that.
No permits have been issued for 606 for 607
And you had some
606
outstanding,
Cleveland and
and
607
607.
Washington.
you had outstanding violations.
The DEC's, if the DEC has made the statements that Mr. Walker is claiming, it doesn't matter because it's still in the town.
It's still zoned R3 within the town and follows our zoning codes.
And those are both zoned, both parcels are zoned R3.
R3.
Okay, oh, and that's the, that,
R2, I
it's the
think.
special.
It is the Homewood Special residential.
zoning,
They have
R2.
not been transferred over to the R2 zoning district, so they still are R3 back.
Oh,
Or are zoning now.
okay, thank you.
Based on.
We've closed the public
Public hearing's
hearing,
over.
and so we don't take comments from the audience after a public hearing.
I just, some folks don't know.
Are we all set
Anything
to move
else?
forward?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the removal and or demolition of unsafe structures at 606 Cleveland Boulevard in Fayetteville, New York, as outlined in the resolution prepared by the attorney for the town.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Okay, next up, code enforcement officer Tom Poitras again, a proposed local law related to tall grass.
I'd like to, so assuming everybody's ready, I've had conversations with Caitlin during Sustainable Manlius about this. This is the first very rough draft that the attorneys will review, but this is what I had spoken with the other code enforcement officer, Michael Belding, and Lisa in the planning and development department for the town. I would like to draw attention to the managed landscape area portion of this. The managed landscape area, and I've spoken with Rob about this, and in relation to sidewalk, it will be line of sight, and if there are sidewalks, maintenance around the sidewalks, putting that, the attorney will have to review legislation put around that to make sure that those are maintained. The setback from property lines is still to be determined, if that is something that would like to go, if you would like to go in there. I also put in there, if you would like to have your managed landscape go up to your neighbor's property line, you would have to put an opaque fence, and that fence would not be able to go into the front yard setback for line of sight issues.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with that part. Could you give me an
If
example?
If you wanted your managed landscape area to
Your commercial.
directly abut your neighbor's property line, you would have to put an opaque fence up,
Okay,
a stockade fence.
okay, so if you're like a dental prop,
Or
you're,
even if you just, as a resident,
okay.
prefer to have I think the common term would be like a wild area. You know,
Gotcha.
where you allow native plants to grow.
oh, gotcha, okay,
So the managed landscape area is defined. A planned intentional maintained planting of native or non-native grasses, wildflowers. Ferns, shrubs, or trees, including but not limited to green gardens, meadows, meadow vegetation, ornamental planting. And it goes on to describe, but noxious plants are prohibited.
have we thought about this? I read this and I didn't think about this until now, the Fremont Meadows property, that property, Rob, do you know which property I'm talking about? That people, is it where people, the one, there's sort of a community.
Island entrance in Summer Islands, several,
Uh,
most of them are HOA owned and maybe.
I'm thinking about the home that's not part of the,
On the backside where
Yeah,
the comes down.
yeah.
So we have.
would this qualify as, they'd say it's native, we'd say it's managed and
That
then.
might be a little bit different. You have a sewer easement that actually comes down
Okay.
from there, so that's a little bit of a different.
Yeah.
You could have that could be part of that.
Because there is a situation in a neighborhood where a number of neighbors don't want to see the unmanaged grass. It's separate from the rest of their house faces this very steep, difficult to mow hill. Sometimes we go and when it was out of compliance, we try to mow it and it's really difficult. And so what I'm asking is, oh, would this sort of prompt the homeowner to have to get a fence to keep their grass high?
I think that'll probably require a little bit of legal review and.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Because of the easement there.
Mhm.
Easement, our right away.
Yeah.
It lost that, so that's a little bit different.
So.
I think all of these situations need to be taken account for the law, but again, a lot of this is complaint based and driven, so some of these areas where if it's, you know, a hill like that, and it's unmanageable terrain, we can review something in that. There is, it is stated in there, if there was portions of unmanageable terrain, or if there's rubbish on a property, that the company that we would hire out to mow the grass would take care of that for us, whether it be weed whacking it or
Right.
some other different type of mowing, cutting the grass.
And I know, I've had some conversations with the board members that we're thinking about referring this over to Sustainable Manlius for some feedback. I think that would be a really, good opportunity. We'll obviously have the attorneys review it, probably look for some of these more edge case properties to understand the impacts that this will have.
Yeah.
And so I think the original intention was to have something prepared to prepare for like no mow May. I think, the plan is that we'll come up with some kind of language to let folks know that no mow May is not to not mow your entire property for the month of May. It's to keep a relatively small area with natural, and or wild, fauna, or flora, in order to encourage, I think it's insects and butterflies. and all-
Pollinators.
Yeah, pollinators. So we'll have something that we will either publish through our website or on social media to kind of clarify that, so that people understand what the intent of no mow May is. And then over time, we'll develop this and, hopefully get something down on paper soon, so.
It's a good rough draft, and I think it'll give us something to work with on the sustainability committee. A couple members in particular, as you know, are very interested and passionate about this topic, so.
And able to inform the residents.
Yeah.
That if we do have residents that want to participate in that, they can steer them in the right direction,
Absolutely.
so they don't have issues after.
And they can learn from the meeting last year, which is, I didn't mow my lawn at all, and I'm still paying for it. Can I make this motion? Is that allowed?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to refer the proposed local law related to tall grass to the Sustainable Manlius Committee.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Opposed?
Sean.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. The very interesting and meticulous work of local governments. Next up, we have a zone change application. This is the initial presentation for Garden Park Apartments. This is on Hybrid Street, tax map number 093 -01 -05.1, and the request is from commercial A to residential 5, R5.
Hello, Danaher. I'm an attorney in Syracuse with Hancock Estabrook. I'm a resident of our town in our village of Fayetteville. And I'm not too far from this site. I know this site very well. I run it. I'm a mile from it. So I thought maybe it's appropriate I talk about it. I'll give a brief overview of what we're trying to accomplish, where we're going. The color will be with Anthony Rayhouse. He'll give you an idea of what we're trying to do on the site from a development perspective. Scott Freeman will add some color about what's on the site. But I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what we're trying to do here.
Thank you.
So the site, if you go down Hybrid Street, outside the village, it's right on your right. It's right next to the Brookdale. It's a vacant piece of land on the southerly side of Brookdale, on the westerly side of Hybrid Street.
A former quarry.
It's zone commercial A. It's approximately 8.7 acres, which actually surprised me. I didn't think there was that much there, but it's 8.7 acres of land. Our applicant is a contract purchaser. It's not the owner of the property. I just found out that, and I went by it the other day, and there's some dumping going on. I recognize a violation has been issued, stop work order. It's obviously something we have to address with our seller. You're addressing with the seller owner, and we can appreciate that's probably part of this whole dynamic as we proceed forward, and I just found out about it. So it's something we recognize and will be addressed, but the applicant is not the owner.
Thank you.
Just to differentiate between the two. The relief we're seeking tonight is a zone change from commercial A to R5. We're also in connection with that, we're gonna seek site plan approval, obviously. I don't know the genesis of how we got to commercial A. I assume it was tied to the Brookdale development years ago. But I spent some time with the comprehensive plan. I was before this board a number of years ago on the North Burdick Street project. And there was conversations about that comprehensive plan. I'm in front of the planning board now with a housing project, but before this board, that was a while ago, it was COVID. We were behind the green, so it's good to be in front of you guys tonight personally. But when I did that site, it was a zone change. It was a site plan, same as tonight. And the reason I took that project, the reason I'm taking this project, I believe it's a good project. I looked at your comprehensive plan. Your comprehensive plan talks about satisfying the needs of housing in our community. Obviously, you gotta balance that with what's surrounding the community when you do a zone change, but I try to keep it really simple. And the way I look at a project when I'm going in for a zone change, site plan approval, is it good for the municipality? Is it good for the town? Is it good for the developer? Is it good for the community? And to add a little color to that, when I say the municipality, does it satisfy where the municipality is going from a development perspective? And reading your comprehensive plan, sitting with it today, I think this squarely fits there. I mean, you have residential, you have R5 across the street. The residential sits higher above this site, so it's the buffer. You've got the commercial there, but to keep it commercial doesn't satisfy the needs of the town. You're gonna have higher traffic counts, intensity of use. I don't think residential's right there. That's my personal opinion. But multifamily gives you that buffer from commercial to residential, creates connectivity with the community. A lot of the things you guys are looking for, along with satisfying the needs of the housing needs of this community. Keeping that, because what we're trying to do is hit that 55 and older community. I would say seniors, but I'm gonna be 55 and I don't think of myself as a senior. So 55 and older, apartments, 1 to 2 families, 70 plus or minus units. It fits the needs, in my opinion, of a transition with Brookdale, along with the community. 900 square feet, 1,300 square feet for 2 bedroom, 900 for 1. A lot of amenities for the people. It's close to the community, offering the amenities, so it's just a really, I think, a logical transition of zone change. So that's from good for the municipality, good for the community. It's satisfying those needs that are being identified in the plan. I mean, keeping these people in our community, keeping people like me that don't want to maintain a home, pay taxes, and do all those things, and not leave our community, plus attract those kind of people to our community. So it satisfies that need from the community perspective. And third, is it good for the developer? We've seen sites, they get approved, or even if they're not approved, they're just not developable, right? And the applicant sat down to run the numbers. It makes sense financially. It works. It's not going to be a site like on Genesee Street where they tear down the building and it sits with a fence for 3 years. I just think it works. It ties close to the Brookdale, and I know we've talked to Brookdale, and I have not personally, but they see this as a good thing for them. Our neighbor sees it as a good thing. I think we have a representative here tonight, Denise Root, and she can attest to that they just think it's good. It's good.
So just looking at the plans, I think one of the main questions that popped up when we were reviewing this, it looks like Gramercy Circle is there going to be the access?
Yes.
Is there an agreement between the applicant and Brookdale to allow for access on that road?
Not yet, not working on it. Discussions have been had.
Okay.
Didn't know if there was possibly a public dedication there. If the town is, I mean, utilities are in there, I believe. I don't know if there was contemplated originally what was gonna happen with that cul-de-sac.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm filling in for the elder Protesky, the younger Protesky.
Can we tell him that you called him?
Yeah.
Because I will be texting him.
Well, there has been, apparently this particular property has been before this board on zone changes in the past. And I think the issue has been access, before, so I think, yeah, I get it, we're in the beginning stages of this.
Yes.
And we're not quite at the site plan or even, we haven't had the public hearing for this yet, but I think an important point this board will probably consider as part of the zone change is just making sure there's sufficient access.
I think we've seen a few other things where access was kind of up in the air. And I don't know, feel free to correct me, but before we would move forward on like going to the public hearing aspect of that, that would, I think the requirement of the board would be to see some type of agreement to let us know that we're not gonna change the zone and access is still gonna be an issue. To your point before about,
Agreed.
yeah, but that, just as a little bit of background from us.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just.
No, it's a valid point, and it's what I saw. I just didn't know if it was something that was going down the road of the town ultimately getting dedication to the town, or it's gonna stay private.
I mean, Superintendent Cushing, correct me if I'm wrong?
So the history of the property, it was intended to be private when it was
Okay.
first built. I believe it was built through the, Alzheimer's facility, built that circle as part of their entrance to that, so it's a private drive, if you will. So there is no real access to that. Sure. So there's been talks over the years, of course, that's been there for quite some time, so there was certainly the consideration at one point of the town taking that road over, the entrance to it. But every time it came across to the board, the cost to bring the road up to the town specifications at the time, there was like an excessive cost, so they kind of turned it down.
Yeah.
So,
I can jump in real quick.
yeah, sure.
With Bill Camperlino, done the prior development. I'm Scott Freeman, project landscape architect. I do know that actual contractor, Joe Muller with Open Construction, did construct that road to town standards. But legally, the steps according to Bill and the drawings that we have, it was not officially dedicated. So, the road's pretty old. It could, if we were successfully able to go forward with this road being the access to the site, and if both parties were open to having it become a public road, we could, I would imagine it would be, maybe we do some asphalt corings and check the depth of the asphalt, but I can assure you Bill and I spoke, the sanitary, the water, the road base, the width, everything has been constructed to town standards.
Right, obviously.
So many years
from our
ago.
perspective, we would have to make sure that. those-
Yeah, so, and it's,
It would be this board's decision,
Yes.
obviously. to take
and
I
it's,
think the general opinion is that if it was up to standards, we would definitely be interested in having that
yeah,
conversation.
and we understand that this is our first presentation. We're not here for full site plan, but the team did do their homework and we're going down that path and we're ready to make some improvements.
Can I interrupt this for 1 second? Who are you referring to? You keep pointing over there.
I'm sorry, let's introduce the development. So you wanna go at this time, introduce everybody?
My name is Bobby Everly, I'm part of it. Tom Douglas and Bill Camperlino.
I'm the owner. Oh, fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'm Scott Freeman. I'm the project landscape architect, and this is Anthony Rojas. He's the project architect. And I'd like to continue site, but I think for everybody to have a full understanding of this, I'd like to start with Anthony, because the building is really what it's gonna be. Access is important, it's all important, but I'd like to hand it over to
Great, thank
Anthony
you.
first.
I just wanted to make a comment too, when we do look at town, I would be concerned about cost as well.
Yeah.
The town was taking another.
That's all part of it.
If that's the density, too, the other thing about the road is that it's, this is density of people. There are many residents of Brookdale, but it's one, they're literally being, served by, by one organization. 70 apartments is different. And I don't know what the implications are for like the police going off a private drive or how serving people in a community or snow plowing or whatever, not snow plowing a whole community, for example, how that.
That would be.
Yeah, anything off of that road, other than be a private, any parking lots, anything like that would be considered still private, so. Again, this
Oh, that's
board,
true.
this board has the option, you require your line of sight issues for that. You can require, traffic study to determine.
Yeah, I'd be
all that
concerned
stuff is
about
part of the
traffic.
site plan portion of it.
Yeah.
But
Those
as
turns
far as-
right there are tough.
What's that?
Those turns right there are tough.
But again, these are all parts of things, you know, it's all above and beyond.
Yeah, site.
Great. And we'll
You started it.
connect with the team and we'll set up a conversation so we can address a lot of. the
I grew up across the street. We rented the bottom half of the house that's across the street from the site, so I know the area really well. I spent a lot of time also running and biking all around, so yeah, I think I remember when it was not filled with trees. It was just a pit, so anyway.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Rojas with the Architects. I'd like to talk a little bit about our design approach and how we've come to what we see before you today. We did take a look at the draft comprehensive plan and really took into account and put at the forefront many of the desirable characteristics that you all envisioned for this comprehensive plan and implemented those within our proposed design. Visually interesting architectural details, mixing of building materials and colors, variation of window types, front porches and balconies, and trying to create a distinctive and highly, unique and appropriate design approach to a multifamily senior living facility. As you see in the renderings before you, the variation of materials are less of a residentially scaled horizontal siding, vinyl siding. It's more of a luxury, wood veneer panels, stones, larger glass, windows that vary in sizes depending on the uses that are in the interior of the facility. The size of the structure here is approximately 32,000 square feet per floor. And it is a three-story structure containing somewhere in the mid-70s. Right now, I think we have planned 78 units within this structure. A combination of one-bedroom units and more two-bedrooms than one-bedrooms. You'll see here as you approach the center of this structure, the main kind of piece here at the center is an enclosed and covered vertical share where residents and guests could drive underneath, weather protected, be able to unload groceries or, pick up, a relative under weather protected area. That's the V-shaped kind of section here in the center. The height, common height along our parapets along the majority of the building is 32 feet in height. And then the winged kind of roofs along the center and at the ends of our building are below the maximum of 40 feet in height, which is the zoning requirement. So we've kept below those requirements from a zoning perspective. And you'll see as we go through these images, this is one that's looking from above that shows the parking and how it's engaging, where we're proposing a lower level parking for enclosed parking for the residents. You'll see one of the entrances here off to the left of this image that would go below grade, and we'd be providing, one parking space enclosed per unit in this building, and then the second parking space in the exterior of the building on the site itself. Reducing the amount of asphalt and covered, ground by doing a lower level of parking, and also giving weather protection and access to the senior population that will be occupying the structure. In this graphic below that, you'll see this dark black line that indicates kind of the relative heights of our site, because there is a large variation. You'll see at the base of the building is what we're considering our zero, all the way to the left at that 10-foot marker. It ranges from 8 to 12 to 14, kind of along that street, that roadway, it kind of comes up. So we're starting 10 feet below that roadway at the majority of our site at our zero. And then all the way to the right is actually the top of that ridge that follows along. It's about 100 feet. So our structure is well below that 100-foot, not obstructing any sight lines from any of the residents above. And even in the site plan, you'll see there's two adjacent properties just behind our structure along the roadway that our roof line to them is also below their ground zero up on the residential. So it won't be as obstructing the most adjacent residences that are right next to us on our site. And then this image here is to show the relative scale to the existing Brookdale structure. You'll notice Brookdale is considered a one-story structure, but with the roof pitches and all the accents that it has there, it has the volume of a two-story structure and the height of a two-story structure. And you'll see in this image that our structure actually sits down into the ground as well as the cul-de-sac comes down. So it's kind of nestled into that pocket. And the massing of our building does not obstruct any of that ridgeline view. So it sits nicely kind of within that site area. So I will let Scott talk a little more in regards to site.
Are you gonna tell us how you're gonna make it look prettier? Because it's not a very desirable parcel at this current time. No offense to anyone that thinks.
No,
it
I
looks
was, but I'm
nice.
pretty, that's why I'm pretty excited about what we're thinking.
Yeah, no, me too.
Can I do just the reference to our draft comprehensive plan is great.
Yes, thank you for that. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
Right, isn't it great?
Yeah.
Well, we haven't, this is a preliminary package, so, you know, the graphics and planting and parking, you see before is preliminary, we're gonna go into enhance that, but I have 6 or 7 points I'd like to talk about, even though, Anthony covered a lot of them. Have you guys heard of Plan Onondaga?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's, if you read that, it's right there.
Yep.
This is infill development, and all of our housing projects that we submit to the county come back within urban areas, and they give us a pat on the back, they support it. So infill development, if you're not familiar, infill development is developing the parcels of land within our cities, villages, and towns, because the infrastructure is there. They're walkable communities, it's more cost-effective development. You're raising the density, you're promoting local businesses, it's everything that's in everybody's comprehensive plan, so we're very honored and really want to see this thing go ahead, so I have to say that in Phil's site development. Now, how do you get up to the 100-foot top of the mountain and the bottom of the mountain? There's gonna be some engineering concerns. There's a big slope there, so we're gonna have to work with a geotechnical engineer for the foundations, to figure out where the footings go. We're gonna have to do a site test, to figure out the permeability of the soil, to figure out the drainage. The drainage was already done preliminarily. There's already a basin there. That was done old school. The new regulations will require some of this, the quantity storage, but we're gonna have to do some pre-treatment. So around the building, we'll have a lot of depressions, and if the soils are well infiltrating, it'll be maintained by a grounds crew. There'll be rain gardens and bioretention areas. So again, more lead type things, more green practices. So it's not just gonna be a lawn with a pipe discharging to the old base. We can't do that anyway. So we have to comply with New York State DEC stormwater regulations. And if the water's well infiltrating, we'll be able to do those rain gardens, and then we'll work with the town engineer as well. So that's what we're thinking there. Getting back to the slopes, they are steep. There is one area where we're cutting into part of that slope where it's a little flatter. So I talked to the geotechnical engineer, so he came up with this cool word, slope stability analysis. So he's gonna analyze the soils, and we will either mitigate the slopes with vegetation or steepen the slope with geofabric and rock, or if we have to, retaining walls. But it's way too early for that. But preliminarily, we feel that the building size and footprint fits the site. Stormwater, we talked about that. Road dedication, we're working with the adjacent owner to work on options there. Landscaping, we're gonna make it better. This is just preliminary. Anthony started on the parking, a lot of senior housing projects. A lot of developers come in with 1.5 spaces per unit or 1.25 for seniors. And we have 1-bedroom homes in here too, but we are at two spaces per unit, even for the single bedroom. So we feel we're at the parking. I mean, we feel we came in with the right size building. We didn't come in with something 3 times bigger. And, it's, if you cut this building in half and say, well, just reduce the density, that's not gonna work either. Just a lot of time and effort went into the financial model to make this work. So the covered parking that Anthony spoke about, that's an asset, but that costs money. Not only does it cost money to build, but it costs money to go through the planning process, because we're gonna be asking for that first floor, we're over your height restrictions. But relative to the section that Anthony drew, you got 90 feet up behind you, and you got 15 feet on the road. And if you took 15 foot off, whatever the total height of the building, 32 feet, so you're looking at, relative to the road, you're at 10 to 15 feet. So we'd like that to be remembered when you get your decision making portion.
Just have to have the land, cooperate with you.
Yeah, no, and I will say this is not a flat site in Cicero where we can come in, draw 6 spot grades and be done. There's a lot of engineering here. There's a lot of coordination with the utilities, a lot of field checking with the soils. We understand all that, but would like the opportunity for you guys to give it strong consideration. I think we're open to questions.
Well, first, I think, if you don't mind, I know we've taken a lot of your time, but Denise came out tonight, Denise Root, Executive Director of Brookdale, just a minute to just talk
Absolutely.
about the project, if that was all right, just to.
We were very
Hear
curious
from our
to hear
closest neighbor.
from Brookdale, so this is very helpful.
Thank you. Hi, thank you. I didn't really know anything about any of this until I wanted to have a shed built on Brookdale property and went into looking for the property lines and reached out to Mr. Camperlino and all hell broke loose from there.
You wanted a shed and now you're getting an apartment complex.
Yes, and you know, honestly, I'm like, Brookdale's very excited about it because, we would like to have maybe the spouse of whoever is living with me live in, it would be wonderful because they're gonna be right there. A lot of these families sell their homes so that they can afford to have their family member in the assisted living. And this would be like the perfect complement. It would be really nice too to have that area developed. You know, utilize it properly, utilize it for something that, you know, is an asset to the town and to us, but, our lawyers are working with their lawyers. From what I understood was that, Gramercy Circle was actually built by Mr. Camperlino to town specs. So it is not ours. It is not Brookdale's.
Okay.
It's just a matter of, I think, deeding it because we needed access.
Yeah.
So we're all on board with it. We don't use it for anything. And quite frankly, part of my reason for it too was I'm somewhat adverse. I'm tight with my money at that building. And I've been paying for the plowing and the lawn work all around it. And why would I do that if that's not even money? So I'm looking forward to it.
So, just a quick question for you. How long has Brookdale been located there?
It was originally owned by Altera, so I believe the building's 25 years old.
Do you know, you might not know the answer to this, but do you know how the neighbors around that area, like across the street and next door, how they felt about that when it was proposed and then developed?
That was probably way before my time.
I remember we were living there when it was proposed and we didn't have a sense of it being like a neighborhood and we expected that to be empty forever. There was an expectation that someday something would.
What was there before?
It was
It's
just,
a quarry.
yeah, it was just
Yeah.
an extension of the quarry in Dartmoor Crossing? No,
I
no.
know it was a quarry.
The neighborhood that's right there.
Yeah.
It was Agway. It was Agway before. It was a garden store.
Oh, I don't remember
All the rest of the stuff. We got the zone change for commercial in the front. And I did Dartmoor Crossing and all the 33 houses that went up.
Hmm.
It was the second modern day parade of homes.
Yeah, I remember.
In central New York.
Yep.
I did the first at Brittany Hills and Garden Park. And, I'm a neighbor there. I have a house on Dartmoor Crossing. I have for over 12 years, so I'm a neighbor. And the neighbors there are my neighbors. So, I don't see any incompatibility whatsoever. I think it's a great compliment. I think
Yeah, I'm trying to get a sense of, because oftentimes, I won't say every time, but oftentimes we'll be really excited about a project or a proposal, and then a lot of people come out and don't want it. Or the other way around, where
I don't think
We're-
people.
tentative, and then we find people are really excited about it or are very much against it. So
I'm
I'm just
thinking
trying
of
to get a
Mendon
sense of-
Farms, for example, and how people thought that might be forever wild where it's back there. I don't get the sense that people ever thought that.
well, it's zoned commercial. It
Yeah.
has been for decades. So if we don't do apartments, it's zoned right now for putting office buildings
Yeah.
and parking lots in.
That's
Yeah.
a really
So
compelling
that's the
point.
choice.
Yes.
You
actually
pull
what we're
office
talking
and
Yeah, a reduction in
apartment building,
intensity, as you said, yeah.
amenities, or you want another office.
Well, and that's-
We don't need.
You know, as a reminder to the board, but also to the audience, when we're considering a zone change, while it is very nice to see intentions and plans and all these things, really the question before the board is, does it make sense to change the zone from one zone to another? And, you know, when we are looking at commercial zoning in the middle of a large residential neighborhood, reducing intensity, and then with also the hope that a project like this makes sense there. That's, that's really the question that we're gonna be asking ourselves. So does the board have any other questions?
No, I think too, like when it came to our table, we look at it, it's like, wait, that was commercial? Why is that commercial?
Yeah.
Well, remember, it was retail. So we went from really intense retail to not so intense commercial. Now we're going down to residential. I think we're going in the right direction.
Absolutely.
I do think that it makes far more sense to have apartments there than anything
Anything
commercial.
you can have in commercial way, basically.
Anthony, did you have something you wanted to add?
Just the last point, that as a part of the comprehensive plan, the initial mappings that have been done to update uses, this site is included in the mixed density residential category.
Yeah, on the blue map.
Yeah, so it's
Oh, yeah.
basically.
Yeah, sorry, we should have mentioned that.
I have a question on the ridge. So that's currently owned as a part of this parcel already, like the ridge is owned, and that's zoned commercial, the ridge itself. So if like in an ideal situation, this project were to move forward and the engineers came back with exactly what you'd want them to say, what would that hill look like? Because it's just very unappealing right now.
Well, the first thing they would look at is stability. Is it gonna move? Is the angle right? And then depending on what the composition is, maybe you could plant it, I don't know. But the one thing is when the building goes up, that's gonna screen half the building. It's kind of like, my analysis of that slope is kind of like when you go on a beach vacation, stay off the dunes, stay off the slope type. So the recommendations might be to add a wall to, on the lower part to stabilize it, or leave it alone. And my dad lives over in assisted living in Nottingham, and that slope is steeper than that, and it's been there for a long time.
Is there any potential for like native grasses or something like
Oh,
that?
absolutely. Recently we did the DeWitt Library project, and they came from a mall. They didn't even go on the lawnmower. So when we went to DeWitt on Janesville Road, we talked about doing a balance of wildflowers and natural grass, and we got the whole back side of that as wildflower slope, and we actually had the front part, and the contractor mixed up the seed mixes. They didn't go all the way, but the front of it was supposed to go wildflower too, and the town of DeWitt was very challenging, agreed with our native approach, but a third of the site is wildflowers, and it's.
That would be awesome, because there's just so much, I drive up and down High Ridge every day. And I have often wondered what that parcel is. By the time I get to town hall, I never remember to actually look it up. But every time I drive by, I always say out loud to myself in the car, oh, someone in the town of Manlius should really do something about this. As the town.
Certainly, I mean, if the geotechnical engineer says stay off the slope, we're gonna stay off the slope, but if we can plant it with native, indigenous stabilizing plants, we will. So
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah, that would be not the, I mean, all of this, of course, would go to the planning board. It certainly wouldn't be under our purview, but that just, I'll plant a seed, unintended in your mind. That
Landscape architect. right?
You're welcome, everyone. You're welcome
Not a lot
for
of
that,
trees,
so.
But I'd like to replant as well.
Yeah.
We haven't articulated this anywhere in the code, but we are really intrigued by the idea of geothermal heating and cooling, and there are, if developers, if this zone change happens and you're before the planning board and everything, we'd like to be supportive of projects with the state that are thinking about geothermal.
It might be tricky with all the rock there to do geothermal.
Once we do borings and understand where our ground is compounded is, we'll be able to understand if it's viable or not to do that. But there are a lot of grant funded, sources that support those, so we would definitely. do those.
EV charging stations are strongly encouraged, though not mandatory.
And also all electric appliances versus any gas.
Well, that could very well end up being the state law.
With New York State moving towards all electric housing, residential projects and buildings in general, that would be the intent is to move to electric.
Just as a sidelight, my house on Dartmoor, my personal house.
Oh, really?
Really?
Oh, we put you on the list for,
You gotta
open
join my
houses for the.
Sustainable Manlius Committee.
No problem.
That's awesome. That's fancy. Right in that neighborhood, right next door there?
Yeah, right at the, just before you go to the cul-de-sac on Dartmoor, you go up the hill, big corner house.
That's fantastic. I've got solar panels on my roof and I drive a full EV, so the last thing on my list is geothermal or a heat pump of some kind. I'll email you and pick your brain.
Like we would like to
Refer to the planning board.
I'll make a motion to refer the zone change applications regarding apartments made by Bob Commodities to change the zoning on parcel located at Hybrid Street from commercial A to residential R5 to the town Manlius Planning Board and the Onondaga County Planning Board. I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much for the presentation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for the very thoughtful consideration of the draft comprehensive. plan.
It's always good to mention.
Okay, next up, we're gonna have a presentation by some SU students on the Bishop Brook drainage.
Yeah, I'm sure we have neighbors too.
Oh, yeah.
From the area, from our neighborhood. So we don't talk about stormwater a lot or anything.
Report. Public room.
Did you guys like my plan to see
Sure.
though? I thought that would go over better than it did.
Well,
It was unintended, but then I realized that it made a lot of sense, so I went for it. I said, unintended. Well, it wasn't intended, but before I said it, I realized it was perfect.
you should see a prompt to accept being promoted to panelist.
All right.
And you should have share access right off the bat.
You make yourself, I can take a picture. I'll make sure to see everybody. Yeah, just one person, come on over. Oh, they're perfect. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Over.
So, as Chair said, we are SU students. And we are doing a presentation on the stormwater management issue at Bishop Brook Road. My name is Nick Trocolo.
My name is Andrew O. Gorman.
I am Jacob Bell.
My name is Tian Long.
I am the project manager for the group. I've done design for the solution for this.
I worked on the sequencing as well as on the funding for this.
I worked on the wetland characteristics and mapping of the project site.
I'm working on the design of the wetland and also the cost estimate. So, starting off with the contents, this is showing basically what we are going to show you today. First, we are going to start off with an introduction to the site, and then moving into some calculations that we did for our actual site, and then moving in further into some details, and then finishing off with some cost estimation and budgeting.
So, as a lot of you know, there is an issue at North Eagle Village Road where there is a culvert that has been increasing in flooding, and that has caused damage to properties, some of the residents. Additionally, there's damage to the highway, and recently there was a flood on the 5th of April.
I have a lot of pictures, video, what this flooding has looked like, especially during the really rainy summer we had.
last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the video obtained from the residents on North Eagle Village Road, and which is has the most damage part during the flood event. And this video was taken at October 2021. And our teams went to the site visit twice and have a conversation with all the residents and asked for about the further information for the flood.
So, I'm trying to solve this problem. We took into a few considerations on solutions to fix it. Of course, as a baseline, no action is what's considered. Increasing trend in climate change, it's more than likely not going to be a viable option, especially cost wise. Increasing the channels / culvert size has also been something we considered, but as some of the board members brought to their attention, there is the town of Fayetteville right downstream. Increasing channel size just moves flooding downstream and causes problems for the town of Fayetteville. We consider retention tanks to storm volume of the storms, but as some of you may know, the high bedrock level at that site makes it
almost impossible without blasting to get a significant amount of volume in there to control the flooding. And another thing we considered was vegetative buffers along the stream, but as the town and the watershed is a very steep and hilly area, the percentage, so about 8% average. Vegetative buffers only work for at a maximum of about 5-6%, so it's not a viable option. So we settled on a constructed wetland as a most feasible solution.
Cool. Amazing. Hello. So here is the watershed in question. This area behind me is the entire drainage basin that leads to the culvert under North Eagle Village Road. It is about just over 1 square mile area. Here we see the land cover at this site. This watershed is primarily agricultural or forested land. This green behind me is all forested land, and the yellow and brown is agricultural, being pasture and cropland respectively. Knowing this land cover of this watershed is important to understand how much water from these storm events infiltrates into the soil and how much of that water runs off directly into the stream. Forests will infiltrate a lot of that water for precipitation, whereas other forms of land cover will contribute more towards this surface runoff, which is a huge cause of this flooding.
So now moving into our design storm analysis. This is basically looking at basically what size storm we need to think of when further designing on this project. And we did this with a peak runoff formula, which is at the top, which is C times I times A. Starting off with MC, as Jacob talked about, different types of soils have different types of runoffs and infiltration rates. So this value of 0.27 is a weighted average of all those different soils in the watershed. Moving on to I, we found this by using the chart on the right. On the horizontal axis is hours, and we assumed a storm event of 1.2 hours. So we went to 1.2 and then went vertical, which is where you can see that dot just under 2, and I'm getting the I value of 1.89 inches per hour, and A is simply the total area of the watershed, which is 691 acres, and then multiplying all that, you can see for the 100-year, there would be 384 cubic feet of water per second going through the culvert.
That was so far over my head. I can't even begin to tell you.
Well, when you said
that
the results, they're very helpful.
What
It's good to know.
Yeah,
how
there
much
were
time
lots of
is
numbers. I just don't
Yes.
know what, I don't.
Thank you.
I would explain it very well.
Yeah.
There's some big storms that.
Thank you, thank you so much, that's all.
And a little paddle boat come down in front of my house.
So, and now we're gonna talk about the culvert. The culvert shown here is the culvert underneath North Eagle Village Road, and is primary restriction causing the flooding at this site. So to better understand this flooding and how to mitigate it, we need to know how much water this culvert can handle. We decided to model this as an arch pipe style culvert. There's a diagram in the bottom right corner of the screen here that depicts it. We went to visit the site, took some measurements and measured the culvert to have a height of 38 inches tall with a width of 38 inches or 58 inches across. We also estimated a max depth of flow of water at this culvert of about 20 inches before flooding would start occurring at the banks just upstream from that culvert. And the material of this culvert is important as well. It is a corrugated steel pipe with a gravel lining on the bottom. This is important to understand how much friction that water is fighting against as it's flowing through the culvert. Also important in understanding this capacity of flow is the slope of the culvert. We estimate this to be 0.05. This came from just geographic data at the site. With this information, calculated a maximum capacity of flow through this culvert to be 99 cubic feet per second. And if you compare this with the calculated peak runoff
Totally insufficient.
events,
Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
we
Do
talked
you know
about
that
fire.
for sure, William, or are you just guessing?
So
No,
it's
I-
384 and only handles 99.
Wait,
so-
say that one more time.
The peak flow.
It was over
384,
300 cubic. Yeah.
That pipe can handle 99.
Yes.
So you just simply subtracted one from the other?
Yes.
I know a bigger straw when it's not.
So the 384 number is the peak runoff flow for a 100-year storm event. To put it simply, it's a storm that could be expected once in 100 years. Realistically, that's a storm that has about 1% chance of happening any given year.
Are we experiencing more 100-year storm
I think
events?
more 10-year ones, and then will you do you know about what storms we're experiencing before?
Are we experiencing, I'll ask it a different way, much more intense storms, much more frequently than we were 10 and 20 years ago?
Well, just, this is a presentation. I appreciate anything you've got. It is a presentation. But, Highway Superintendent Cushing, would you say that we've had more rain than in the past?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, climate change is exacerbating precipitation in this area. We are moving towards a warmer and more moist climate.
And we want to do a full comprehensive stormwater analysis. That's a recommendation from the comprehensive plan.
So the takeaway from this slide, is this culvert is not sufficient to handle these intense storm events as it currently stands.
So based on these calculations, we decided to make a wetland. So what is a wetland? A wetland is a distinct ecosystem that is characterized by the presence of water, permanently or seasonally, at or near the surface of soil. The wetland is a transition area just between the soil and the water, and where the soil is more saturated with water. And the wetland is a habitat for a large variety of wildlife, including specific plants and animals. It also provide ecosystem services such as water shelf storage, flood control, prevention of the erosion, and also it's important for human use such as agricultural, recreation, and water storage.
So we talked about what a wetland is. Now we're going to talk about how we could make one. The first step in constructing a artificial wetland is site identification and site analysis. We want to make sure that we're building wetland at the right spot. Some of the characteristics of the site that we're looking for lie a lot in the soil. We need the soil deep enough to dig storage basins into the ground. We also are looking for soils that have desirable plant growing characteristics. We also need to do an extensive survey on the microtopography at the site to better understand how much landscaping we need to do to create a wetland. After the survey is done, next comes excavation of the site. We need to dig storage basins to store this water in, to accommodate for these volume of water. Embankments also are part of this construction to protect against overflow during these intense storm events. The goal in this stage of construction is to alter the microtopography of the site to increase the flow path of water. We want to slow down water as much as possible through this wetland. The longer it takes for water to flow through this wetland during storm events, the easier it is for the culvert to handle that flow. Also part of this design is vegetation. Native species of vegetation that are capable of handling constant inundation will be planted in the site to prevent against erosion and to provide food and habitat for wildlife and ecosystem. And maintenance in this wetland would look like reseeding events to ensure that these vegetation that you're planting grows strongly and continues to grow.
So this is an example of an area view of a dimensionless shallow detention wetland. And this came from the New York State Stormwater Management DEC manual. So as you can see, there's an inflow that would be just above the base flow of the perennial stream that would inflow into the wetland itself, into a forebay. And like Jacob said, microtopography and the site location is an important factor in the shape of the wetland. So there would be areas, because the rock is an irregularly displaced material, there would be areas that are higher or lower than others. So based on a site survey, you would have maybe even a possible island around the wetland. And the goal is to have the longest flow path throughout the entire wetland to absorb as much volume of the stream as possible. And towards the end of the stream, you get to an embankment, which has a steady outfall. Once you get to a certain level of flooding into the wetland. And this is the profile of that. And as you can see, the more extreme the flooding event, the closer you get to that riser, there is an emergency spillway attached to it, just in case there is a storm that is higher than our anticipated calculations and that the wetland can handle. And so this is just for the sake of design, location that we said right next to the stream itself to feasibly do it. We would want to choose a location based on, of course, the residents. That is, it is open land. We don't want to remove any highly forested areas because they are more effective at reducing runoff.
So now moving on to how long we think this would take. In total, we estimated to take just about 6 months. First, we would start off with them getting land, and although it is fairly large, this is mainly just saying that we recommend doing this in the winter months because we wouldn't be able to dig on the land until it is fully thawed. So once that's done, a full site survey is done just to make a account of all the brushes and the trees that need to be taken out. Once that's done, they'll be taken out, and then actual excavation will start. And then once this starts, erosion control will also start. Since our site is right next to the stream, we don't want to put any excess dirt or dust or anything into the stream. So things such as silt fences should be put up for that. Once that's done, seeding will start, and then moving into vegetation stabilization. This is basically just making sure all the plants that have been planted, that the roots are deep enough so that the first storm event won't just wipe them out and then kind of just throw them into the stream.
So basically, we calculate our costs based on the size of different storm event, and also different size of our wetland. So according to our calculations, we typically need a 3.16 acres wetland for a 25-year storm event, 4.3 acres for a 50 years event, and 5.7 acres for a 100 years event. First of all, we need a permission for both construction for the wetland and also the excavation part. And as you can see, the excavation is the majority part of the cost, the total cost, which is almost like 80% of our total cost. And then we need our seeding, starting, and also grass channel for our vegetation part. And the New York State standard and the specification of erosion and sediment control manual, we calculate about the maintenance fee, basically about mostly on the vegetation area of our wetland. And the last part is our labor costs, including the engineers and workers. So based on the calculations, like for the 3.16 acres wetland, which is take care of the 25-year storm, the cost is 1.3 million-ish. And this is the least costly plan, and also that's what we recommended.
moving into budgeting and I'm funding, so prior to funding.
We all need to run for office. We all need to serve in local government too. Or on your planning boards, wherever you live.
So we've seen our comprehensive plan appear tonight and our budget.
Wow.
Brownie points, yeah. It's like the best night of my life.
So taking a look at the town budget, this is from this year, and in the bottom left, we should all know hopefully that the budget is just over 18 million. But of that, the chart in the middle is almost 16% of that. And then of that, only 2.1 million could possibly go towards this project. And then even with the least cost option, it would be over half of the budget. So it's not very feasible. So we'd look into some funding. And with that,
Sustainable man.
I think I just got better.
Wow.
So-
it was possible, but
Yeah.
So actually thankful to you guys, you joined the climate smart community in 2020. So with that, you are automatically eligible for the climate smart grant. And then this is a 50-50 matching program. So then the cost of the project instantly would be cut in half. And then with this, it is anywhere from $50,000 to $2 million. So you could go up to the 50-year storm event as it is under 2 million. And the next major grant that could give money is a Green Innovation Grant. And this falls under the green stormwater infrastructure, and it could cover 75 to 90%. But the main problem with it is very competitive, and it is kind of given out as a for the most at risk projects and the most like what projects need the most attention. So it's not very likely that we will get that. And then just some extra funding that could take away some costs of the already hopefully cut in half cost. And it has the Clean Water State re-involving fund and the waste and the water and waste disposal fund.
So as an overview of what we presented on today, based on our feasibility study, which Dr. Lennon is the most effective and most feasible option, the funding for projects such as stormwater management are trending towards green infrastructure. They would have a more likely ability to get funding for it. And our least cost option recommendation for the 25-year storm is based on a smaller footprint, 3.16 acres, less disturbance to the area. And yeah, here's our references.
Great. Thank you. You guys know we are the first and only climate smart community in Onondaga County. I can't say that for too much longer. It's my understanding that more are coming in the next month or two, but for now, we can always have the first, but as of now, still the only, so.
One of the questions I had was, is that how you guys arrived at the wetlands being the best, is given the available funding?
It is part of the consideration, but yeah,
Yeah.
funding and it's like geography.
And, one other question, I didn't see it specifically, was land, the purchase cost of the land factored in?
That is not factored into the total cost.
Yeah.
But of course.
Oh, that's great. Any other questions from the board?
That was great.
John, I'd just like to thank the team. I've been working with them since January and they've done a very thorough job. And we appreciate it. Please send us a copy of your PowerPoint. The residents in the area will be very interested in that.
This really was really impressive, really great, and definitely an area that needed some attention, some real focus on, and to be able to move forward with some real understanding of what it costs. I'm sure you guys have, taken that into consideration, but that really helps us, and I thank you for laying out all those funding opportunities, because that really is gonna be where we start, is having conversations around those funding opportunities. And this is going to be a great complement to our comprehensive stormwater analysis. So I really appreciate the time you guys put into this. We really appreciate your time here.
I also heard that NYSERDA, through the Clean Energy Communities Program, sometime later this year or early next year, will be announcing additional clean energy communities actions that you can take that result in funding in $5,000 increments is what they've been doing. And that the increased focus will be on mitigation rather than adaptation rather than mitigation. So there could potentially be additional funding sources and encouragement to do this resiliency work in the future. That's great.
Add that to your presentation.
Yeah.
So NYSERDA, the acronym is NYSERDA, NYSE.
New York State Energy Research and Development Agency.
Well, thank you very much. Really
Thank you
appreciate it.
very much. Thank you. Very well. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay. Next up on the agenda, we had a public hearing at our last meeting about the draft local law to establish a planned use district. We had some changes we made. I think we took the recommendation from the county planning board to remove the minimum, or did we reduce it?
Did you just ask us?
Did we remove or reduce the? I think we removed it.
We removed it based on our last conversation.
Yeah, and the recommendation, there's a few other language changes in there, some of the recommendations from the planning board. We had some recommended changes from our planning board, which I think we considered almost all of them. And so we've had a few weeks to look at this. Are there any other questions, any other comments, anything we want to discuss about this?
All right, I'd like to make a
Before we
motion.
do that, we actually have to do a seeker on this, so.
All right, can you go faster than the elder protest gate?
Yeah, I will
You have
go as fast as I. So does anyone at this time want to designate the town of Manlius board as lead agency for seeker purposes?
I'd like to make a motion to designate the town as the lead agency for seeker purposes.
Who wants a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Oh, did we
All
last
in
time?
favor?
Did we do seeker with your father? I think
we did.
We did.
We
Okay,
did it.
well, then if you
Well,
did,
let's double check.
Hold on.
This is really getting into problems if we don't. I don't.
Or did we do that for the CNY land trust? Yeah, that's what.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
That's why.
We have a motion and a second for lead agency.
So I made a motion second, yeah.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
so I will read off a series of questions. If there's no answer to the questions, I will assume the answer is no or small impact. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? Will the proposed action result in a change in use or intensity of use of land? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
It will create an intensity of use. Oh, well, wait, it could. This is not the specific plan, it's just the umbrella thing.
Yeah,
That would be.
Yeah, that would be the
for
district plan,
not the PUD.
All we're doing here is just creating enabling legislation to possibly have a PUD at some point in the future.
So, no, so this here right now, that's a no.
Yeah.
It's a no for this.
Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area?
No, not this.
but we say no to small, right?
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway? Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and fail to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? No. Will the proposed action impact public-private water supplies, public-private wastewater treatment utilities? No. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources? Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources? Example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health? Based upon the answers, does anyone at this time want to make a finding of no significant impact for seeker purposes?
Yes. Yes.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
We should time to that. That was good. That was good.
Okay, so seeing that there is a negative declaration, would anyone like to make a motion to adopt this?
I will make a motion to adopt local law 2023-6 to amend chapter 155 of the town code and establish a planned unit development, PUD, zoning district and various zoning districts in the town and setting forth rules and regulations for site development.
I'll second.
Okay.
I think so.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. And we've had some initial conversations with a potential district plan coming our way. Really good conversations. They watched our last meeting and really listened, consider the comprehensive plan, draft comprehensive plan. And so as soon as we are ready to deliver that out to everyone, we'll continue those conversations. But with this enabling law, it gives them the confidence that we'll be able to move forward. So looking forward to seeing some of these potential district plans come our way. Okay. Next up, resolution recognizing Earth Month in town mailing.
So we are a little bit late here in the last week of April, but better late than never. In anticipation of Earth Fest coming up this Saturday, the third Earth Fest, second in-person event. We wanted to make sure that we got this resolution in the month of April to recognize both Earth Day, which has passed this previous weekend, as well as what is the official term? I know it's Earth Month, but we're designating it, we're acknowledging it, whatever. Recognizing, thank you. That this is the month that we do all this amazing work, cleaning up parks and picking up trash and highlighting climate action opportunities. So we'll be doing that in full force this weekend with Earth Fest, the largest Earth Day event in Onondaga County and perhaps the region. It's really come together so well. We're partnering with Renewable Fayetteville this year, and it'll be at Canal Landing Park from 10 to 3. We've got how many electric vehicles now? A couple dozen?
Over 20.
Yeah, and we are almost at capacity with all the booths that have registered. We've got raffles, we've got activities for kids with our own recreation department this year. It's gonna be really awesome, and the weather is supposed to be pretty good. It might be a passing shower, but I mentioned in an email that unless there was a typhoon tornado with like electricity surging through the earth, so we wouldn't be seeing. So it would have to be quite literally like a typhoon to get us to cancel it. This plan to postpone to the rain date. So we'll be on Saturday. I'd encourage everyone to come. And the only other thing I'll mention is that we're encouraging people to bike to Earth Fest. So if you live locally or in the town of DeWitt and the Chittenango Canal Museum, they're partners of ours, and they are promoting biking to Earth Fest along the Erie Canal and the Feeder Canal. And we will also have at Town Center, closer to that back Stickley entrance and at Ryder Park in the town of DeWitt, an electric bus will be providing a shuttle. I finally remember that word, though I had to Google it again the other day because I keep wanting to say chauffeur and I knew that was wrong. But there will be a shuttle on an electric bus, which is really, really cool. So Craig Bohannes, Alice Massa, and the entire Earth Fest committee has just been working tirelessly on this since the start of the year. It's really one of the flagship events of the town, which is pretty cool. A couple years ago, we didn't even have a sustainability committee. So in light of that, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution recognizing Earth Month in the town of Manlius as presented. Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you
And
very
on
much.
Sunday, we will take a nap.
Okay, next up, we have the agreements for the Hope for Heather events through the Village of Manoa. This outlines our responsibilities and our commitment to providing police officers, sets the rate. There's a rough estimate in there so that, understanding we are providing police officers to help provide security during the event. And we have our rate out there. It also includes the responsibilities of both the private organization and the Village of Manoa. Are there any questions on this? This is I think, pretty much the same agreement we've seen time and time again. For a fantastic event. In the Village
Good
of Manoa.
event, smoothly run. Good, it's a good one.
This is a man of teal saying.
Yeah, that's right.
Fully approved.
Fantastic. Well, would you like to?
Sure, Supervisor, I'd like to make that motion to authorize you to sign the 2023 agreement regarding the Hope for Heather Teal Ribbon Run through the Village of Manoa, New York on May 20th.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye,
All right,
opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
How long is the event?
yeah, 5K.
It's a 5K and a 3K walk. They're also doing a virtual component.
Okay, seeing as we would like to make town hall look presentable, I reached out to a number of landscape companies to talk about grounds maintenance. Best proposal that came my way was the Brightview proposal. We actually had a contract with them back in 2021. They know the property. They gave us a great quote. We have an understanding of minimizing or no pesticides, things like that. So that we're doing our best. And
Do
this
they do
is,
they'll do native plantings and things?
so this isn't, we don't have an agreement, a proposal yet for plantings, but basically, assuming we adopt these, we'll reach back out to them, get some proposals. We had some conversations and I had mentioned, we prefer native species and things like that, so. And we've had a great relationship with them so far, so. I will look for a motion.
Just to, on their proposals or their invoices, there was a tax, so we need to remove the tax, which I did. So, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the proposals from Bright New Landscape Services for spring cleanup and mulch in the total amount of $2,194.44.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
That's the person that was.
That was one of those tasks that I kept on. I realized it was spring. I figured we'd sign up for a spring cleaning. Okay, next up, we have the supervisor's report for March 2023. I would just be looking for a motion to sign that as presented. We don't have a prepared.
Sarah,
I'll make a motion to approve the supervisor's report.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's
Opposed?
the abstract, sorry.
Okay, motion carries. So then we do have the approval of the minutes. That's gonna be tabled. Everyone has a draft of that copy. Thank you to Alyssa for a little extra eyeballs on there, but we'll table that for the next meeting. Then we do have approval of abstract number 8.
So I'd like to make an approval and a motion to approve abstract number 8 in the amount of $314,119.30.
Favor?
What was the big winner this time, Sarah?
The winner is actually trash and brush. Nothing exciting this time.
All those opposed?
I think our highway superintendent would beg to differ. That's how exciting it is.
So that motion will pass. I appreciate that. And then I'm gonna look for a motion to enter executive session to discuss hiring or employment matters, I guess.
Personnel matter.
Personnel matters.
I'll make a motion at our executive session to discuss personal matters.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you, everybody. We just, as we go into executive session, we're gonna ask everybody either step outside as we have to have a closed session. And we will alert everybody when the public portion of the meeting.
As the elder protectee always says, come on in, come back.
Oh, should I have to open the door? 'Cause that might-
Elder.
No. I am so changing him in my phone to the elder protectee.
So, following discussion in executive session, I am looking for a motion to hire a comptroller.
I'll make a motion to hire Maria Lenway as comptroller at a yearly salary of $70,000. Effective May 15th. Oh.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Make a motion to increase deputy town manager salary, set the yearly salary of K5 to $46,600 effective May 8th, 2023.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.